gamers, gals, and my non-binary pals. Welcome to this week's episode, or day, because I do these basically whenever the hell I want at this point, to Smarter with Stevie. Today, we're going to be doing an in-depth breakdown of YCS Viagra. Everything you need to know about YCS Viagra and the new metagame. But first, this video was sponsored by Lego. Kind of. So, one of my viewers reached out to me, and they have an idea for a Lego idea. If you guys are unaware, Lego Idea is basically a site where you are able to put an idea, a theme for a set that you could want, and if it gets enough votes and community support, Lego actually talks to the company that owns the IP and tries to make your idea into a reality. And yes, this is like the actual Lego. And I was like, you know what? That's pretty poggers. So I'm going to leave this in the description. If you want to vote for this, you can register an account on Lego Ideas. You just input a vote, and that's it. Hopefully, we will get a Konami Yu-Gi-Oh! Lego set, which is pretty poggers. What were our expectations for YCS Niagara? A lot of people correctly assumed that Tier Element and its variants are going to take off. Sprite and Danger Tier Element, who would have guessed, are basically the absolute nuts. You play an extremely small Sprite engine. You can play Dangers to help facilitate consistency and better mills, such as hitting the Tier Elements out of your hands in order to fusion summon, blah, 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 blah. Nessie is an Aqua, you get the point. Sprite is okay. It's not like a bad deck by any mean of the imaginations. Sprite is like a really good deck. It's just pretty underwhelming when you put it side by side with Tier Element in regards to like the sort of combo boards. That being said, it is still Sprite. It's like the most consistent combo deck out there. Its variants are being experimented with. Punk and Runic are actually pretty up there. Punk is able to go into Halka Fibrax to special summon like a level 2 tuner, and you can overlay those for Gigantic. You can also play Runic cards because guess what? Hugin is a level 2. The Runic cards basically act as great removal tools in order to basically give you the one-up over your opponent. Because basically, who would have guessed that Sprite cards are not great for battle? Rickson Avalon possibly could do well. Mystic Mine, we all hate Mystic Mine. Mathmech, Exorcister, and Blunder, they'll probably sneak in the top 32. I'm pretty sure this was the general consensus going in. Card choices going into this event. Time cards are still being played ad nauseum. We have stuff like Skull Mark Ladybug as a mill off of Tier Limit. Agave Dragon is also another time card that you could be playing in Tier Limit because Mud Dragon of the Swamp is a worm and Agave will heal you. And Ghost Mourner is actually a pretty interesting hand trap for the wrong reasons. If you guys don't know, if your opponent special summons a monster, you can Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill it, which is basically Effect Veiler, and if it leaves the field, they take damage equal to its attack points, which could be used for any number of reasons. Surely it will be used in order to serve as an additional piece of interruption, right guys? Board breakers are pretty good. Ideally, people are playing stuff like Triple Tactics Talents, people are playing stuff like Enemy Controller. That's the general consensus based on what we saw at Euros. People aren't really in the mood to play hand traps. Blowouts like Nibiru and Shifter are much better than one-for-ones that don't exactly end the turn, win you the game like on the spot, turn, that sort of deal. And additionally, be prepared for Mystic Mine. Insert your Jesse Cotton Toy here. People are playing all sorts of stuff in the main and side in order to deal with your opponent's mystical mind. Stuff like Eradicator, Epidemic Virus, Cosmic Cyclone, etc. Deck realities kind of did play out exactly as we expected. Sprite had the biggest representation with a 46.9% cut. Tier Element had a 28% cut. Sprite tier, which is sort of a mix of both, it had a 9.4. Exorcister, Fluanderies, and Mathmech had 2, 2, and 1 representation in top cut respectively, basically. Sprite had a bunch of variants. People were playing frog stuff. That's just basically normal pure Sprite. People were playing the adventure engine because, I don't know, I guess people really just love fucking gambling. Runic stuff is, again, pretty interesting because the whole deck is basically removal spells and instant fusions. Tier Element did not see as much representation as I originally thought, actually. I thought it would have like a lot more slots, but it actually didn't take up a huge chunk, only about 25%. 6 were playing Danger Combo, who would have guessed. 2 were playing Pure, and 1 was playing Runic Frog, which I'm not 100% sure what the hell that is. Some additional notes. A couple decks did manage to sneak into top 32. However, they aren't really good enough to really break into top cut as the meta becomes more defined and unforgiving. As people are figuring out more and more what the best deck is definitively and how to build these decks extremely well, people are kind of realizing that maybe we shouldn't be playing fucking Rika Sun Avalon. Speaking of, Rika Sun Avalon disappeared. The meta is more optimized and unforgiving, but one of the biggest factors of why I believe that people aren't playing this deck is because people aren't good. There was a huge amount of Rika Sun Avalon players at this event, actually. I think as many as Mathmech, but the reason why not a lot of them converted in comparison to the other decks, in fact, none of them converted, is primarily due to the fact that it's A, an extremely difficult deck to play, and B, most people who own the deck are not good enough to play it. Again, I said it in the previous video, and I'll say it now, because they had a really good player playing the deck who was on our pro team. And who would have guessed that you guys are about none of those? So keep that in mind. Card choices. Turns out hand traps might have actually been pretty good. They were good enough versus rogue decks trying to set up. So obviously hand traps are much more effective versus anything that's not named Sprite or Tier. Additionally, targeted hate was basically being played above normal hand traps. So stuff like Veiler, Ash Blossom, Ghost Ogre, those sort of cards were cut, but a lot of more targeted hate, such as DD Crow, Ghost Mourner, Shoal Despair, and Cyframe Gear Gamma were much more effective. DD Crow hits tier elements, Gamma gets rid of the level 2 normal summon, and Ghost Mourner is Ghost Mourner. Fuck you, time rules. Players still did play board breakers, but at a much lower concentration. Stuff like Dark Ruler, Mystic Mine, and Pack was actually playing anti-magic arrows, which is really funny. As we progress into top 8, it's pretty clear that Tier Limit is probably the best deck, but Sprite is definitely the easiest to make it to a top cut, just because Sprite is extremely consistent. It's pretty linear, it's very powerful. Tier Limit does take a lot more brain power and a lot more effort and a little bit more luck, honestly, to top with, but if all the stars point north, then it is without a doubt probably the best deck. Hey, what's this yellow pie chart doing here? That Exo Sister? The finals! Duel 2. Jesse Khan started day 2 by activating the effect of Danger Mothman and die chained the effect of Dimension Shifter from his hand. Ah, I see. So turns out, Exo Sister won. Exo Sister won the fucking event. My god. So who let him win? Who let Dai win a fucking YCS? So it turns out that they basically played an anti-meta deck with a ton of targeted hate and were basically hugely rewarded for it. Exo Sister does very well against Tier Limit that doesn't play hand traps, because a lot of the Tier Limit builds, they're mainly trying to cram as much gas in there as possible, maybe a couple board breakers, if any at all. Additionally, cards such as Necro Valley, Exorcist Carpe Divum, Mystic Mine, those cards are absolutely amazing versus unprepared players. And Shifter. Shifter was honestly kind of a big part of it, let's be real. Some other breakout cards include Dimensional Shifter, god damn it, and Time Cards. God damn it. People are playing Agave Dragon. Who designed this shit? Some card choice cringes that we do have to talk about, however, is board breakers. Board breakers turned out to be not as good, actually. Tactics, Ultimate Slayer, Enemy Controller, these were all missing completely from top 8 lists. They're still very good, and they still definitely do have a place within the metagame, but I would not call them staples in the same way we might have thought in Euros. So that's something pretty interesting. Mystic Mine was also something that also fell off. Although it's still extremely good, it's nowhere as abundant as before. People started playing this in side decks rather than being like terrorists and playing them in the main deck. This is also, in fact, due to people sort of getting used to Mystic Mine being in the format. They decided to actually main deck, like 6 outs to the Mine in the main deck. And players who were prepared for people main decking outs to Mine basically just took them out, put them in the side deck, and they just replaced it with maybe like a couple targeted hand traps. So let's take a look at the event takeaways. Sprite and Tier are probably the best decks in the format. Not even probably, they just are. Pure Sprite is probably the best variant of it. Danger Tier is definitely the best variant, because oh my god, that deck is nothing but gas. Other decks such as Mathmech, Blunder, Ricochet, Avalon, Exorcister, they can still compete top. They're just not going to be able to consistently do so. It's going to be sort of like a toss-up between which 3 of the 4 are going to have like 1 or 2 cuts in top slot, and which one's going to get completely blown out in pools. Hand traps are being played with again, and board breakers are being like sort of phased out of rotation. But again, both are still extremely good choices within the metagame. It's just one is not immediately particularly over the other. Time cards are also extremely cringy crongemas. So all my homies hate time cards. That's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Give me Jeff Bezos' money at twitch.tv/Stevie Blunder. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that Among Us stuff. And yeah, if you want to catch these segments live, again, twitch.tv/Stevie Blunder. And if I ever see any of you guys playing Ghost Mourner, Spooky Dogwood, Time Cards, I will hunt you down in Minecraft. Subscribe!